Hello and welcome again. My name is Dr. Piro. This is the Campus 101 exam series. And today we're going to be looking at cells. Cells have come out in your exams 10 times out of 10 times in the last 10 years. If you do not know a cell, if you don't know the basic functional and structural unit of life, then there is no point to study biology. So this is a very important component of your exam. So these are the most common ways in which questions on cells are set in your exam. Functions, draw a cell and maybe state a few functions of some organelles. Differences between plant and animal cell, differences between mitosis and meiosis. So quickly now we'll just look through this in a very quick way. So, as I said, what is a cell? What is a cell? A cell is the basic unit of life, basic structural and functional unit of life. Now, cells can either be prokaryotic, like in bacteria, or eukaryotic, like in plants, like in you and me. So, two types of cells like that. So, the question is going to be like, draw a cell and list the function of 3 organelles. So, let's quickly draw a cell and then list some function of organelles. Drawing a cell should not take you more than 5 minutes. Wow. Now, you see, I'm drawing close to one side. I have a reason for doing that. Biggest organelle. Next. Alright, so this is my nucleus. So what are the functions of the nucleus? The nucleus contains what? Yes, exactly. Genetic material in the cell. It's also the site of protein synthesis. And it is regarded as, the most important organelle in the cell. Alright, so this is our nucleus. Next organelle I'm going to be talking about is, and I'm going to paint it in red, tell you what happens here. This is the mitochondria. Mitochondrion for one, and then chondria for many. What's the mitochondrion? It is the site of metabolism in the cell. Metabolism. It is the site for breakdown of things and all that. So there's a lot, and it's regarded, aka the powerhouse of the cell. Exactly. Next point we're going to put this tiny looking stuff here, and then guess what we're going to call it? Exactly, we're going to call it the ribosomes. So what are ribosomes? Ribosomes are the chief site for protein synthesis. Protein synthesis. Another organelle I'm going to talk about quickly because it's so important is the Golgi body. Let's draw Golgi body in blue. Right, so the Golgi body, some people call it the Golgi apparatus, is responsible for what? Packaging and processing of things that have been synthesized in the cell. So look, in this short period of time, we've looked at the ribosome, the nucleus, the Golgi body, the mitochondria. Now, with these already, you can answer that question. But there's a very important organelle which we have not talked about, and it's staring right at us in the face. Exactly, the cell membrane. Now, the cell membrane is the gate. It protects the cell and gives integrity to the cell, keeping out foreign bodies and keeping in the good things. So the cell membrane. Now, other organelles which are important parts of the cell, which I will just briefly talk about, are 1, the endoplasmic reticulum. And there are 2 types of the endoplasmic reticulum. When it stands alone, we just call it the endoplasmic reticulum. When it is in combination with ribosome, we call it what? Exactly, the rough endoplasmic reticulum. And then let me write it as rough endoplasmic reticulum. And then this is the smooth one, and then we call it what? Just the endoplasmic reticulum. There are many other organisms or organelles in the cell. Alright. Now, very important part of, and in a plant cell, there is a thick surrounding part of the plant cell. And this thick surrounding part in the plant cell is called what? Exactly. You're so smart. I'm wondering why you even made this tutorial in the first place. It's called the cell wall. The cell wall. Obviously, you know that plants are stronger than animals in terms of integrity. That's why you sit on wood. Wood is made up of plant cells too. But the cell wall gives that integrity, to plant cell. Another important organelle in, plant cell is the chlorophyll. And let me just label it as green here. chlorophyll. Yeah, chlorophyll is that important organelle where that important process of photosynthesis takes place. Alright, so this is just a structure of the cell, giving a few organelles and their function. The next thing we're going to look at is the difference between plant and animal cell. Alright, so, and we have to do it in another picture. What are the key differences, alright, between a plant cell and an animal cell? What are those fundamental differences? Let me tell you that it's a very important part of your exam. We studied this and we saw that about 3 out of 10 times in a year, in the last 10 years, the difference between plant and animal cell have recorded in your exam. So, what is the fundamental difference between a plant cell and an animal cell? Let's keep here plant cell and animal cell. Obviously, you know when they ask you for differences in your exam, you do it in what? Tabular form. Exactly. Alright, so we have a rough table there. So what are the key differences between plant cells and animal cells? So let me start. First, plant cells have what? Chlorophyll. Animal cells do not have chlorophyll. Why? Animal cells don't do photosynthesis, so we'll leave it as what? Nil. So 1, chlorophyll. 2, cell wall. In the animal cell, they have a cell membrane, but you do not have a cell wall. And the cell wall, as I said, is responsible for that integrity. Is responsible for that integrity in the plant cell wall. A third and important part that's the difference between the plant and animal cell is that animal cells have lysosomes. Lysosomes are, like the security men in an animal cell. They're the ones that fight bacteria and all those kind of things. But in plant cell, there is no lysosome. Number 4, the food vacuole in a plant cell is large. So a large food vacuole. But in an animal cell, the food vacuole is actually small. Large food vacuole, small food vacuole. The 5th difference I'll give between a plant and an animal cell before I just conclude this part of the process is that food is stored in plant cell as starch. Plants do photosynthesis and store it as starch. Animals don't do photosynthesis. They store glycogen. They store food in their vacuoles as glycogen. So these are 5 key differences between a plant and an animal cell. Cheap to remember. Chlorophyll, because they do photosynthesis. If they have chlorophyll, that means they also have chloroplast. These guys don't have chlorophyll, they don't have chloroplast. These guys have cell wall, that's why they are so strong. That's why wood is so strong. We have cell membranes. Plant cells don't have lysosomes, we have lysosomes. Food vacuole is large in plant cell for storage, is small in animals because they don't even produce food, they just have to eat other plants or eat other animals. Starch is a storage form in plants, glycogen is a storage form in animals. I've already talked about the chloroplast. So these are some key differences between plant and animal cell. Now, for the things that unite them, what are the similarities between plant and animal cell? 1, and I want to write it across the line. Both are prokaryotic. No, of course not. Both are eukaryotic. Both have the organelles. Both of them have nucleus. Both of them have endoplasmic reticulum. Both of them have cell membrane. List the similarities as you would prefer. Since that is clear, you can keep that out of the way. Now let's look at another important question that may coming out with regard to cells in your exam. And this is the difference between meiosis and mitosis. Meiosis and mitosis. Now, we know that cells reproduce by dividing to daughter cells. We are sure of that. We know that that's how cells, the cell theories, 3 fundamental cell theories. One of them states that living organisms is only life begets life. So cells produce new cells, and cells produce new cells by dividing. 2 key ways by which cells divide are meiosis and mitosis. Now, what are the differences between meiosis and mitosis? Why are they so important, and why are they important in your exam? They're important in your exam because they come out. They're important in real life because they are a significant part of cell metabolism, and they happen in both plant and animals, and they are very key. So 1, in meiosis, 4 daughter cells are produced after meiosis. So 1 cell divides into 4. So in meiosis, 4 daughter cells. In mitosis, 2 daughter cells are produced. That's the first and the key difference between mitosis and meiosis. Second and important difference between meiosis and mitosis is that meiosis happens in germ cells or gamete cells. Mitosis happens in somatic cells. Somatic cells are just the common cells in our body. So somatic cells, like the skin cells, etc. Gamete cells are the gametes that reproduce. So 4 daughter cells in meiosis, 2 daughter cells in mitosis. Meiosis occurs in germ cells, meiosis occurs in somatic cells. Number 3, key difference. In meiosis, there's crossing over of genetic material. Crossing over of genetic material. Here, no crossing over of genetic materials. No crossing over of genetic material. Alright? Number 4, in meiosis, let me start this way. In this way. In number 4, in mitosis, the daughter cells are identical. They are identical to the parents. In meiosis, there is variation. That's why we don't look exactly like our parents. We look like them, but we don't look exactly like their carbon. Like we're not a photocopy of our parents. But in mitosis, the cells are a direct photocopy of their parents. And these are already very fundamental differences between meiosis and mitosis. The fifth difference is that in meiosis, and this is very important for you to remember, meiosis is regarded as a reduction division. While mitosis is regarded as a multiplication division. That's a confusing term. Multiplication division. Now let me explain this. In meiosis, the number of chromosomes is reduced by half. In mitosis, the number of chromosomes is preserved. So we start with 2n and we end with what? 2n. In meiosis, we start with 2n, but we end with what? N. So the number of chromosomes is reduced. So we call it a reduction division. In meiosis, that's meiosis. In mitosis, we start with 2n and we end with 2n, even though the cells divide, meaning at some point they became 4n, so that when they divide, we now have 2n. That's why it's called a multiplication division. So quick recap from the top. Cells are the structural and functional units of life. When you draw a cell, draw it to one side, put your organelles here. We mention of organelles such as the nucleus, ribosomes, cell membrane, Golgi body, mitochondria, cell wall, rough and smooth endoplasmic reticulum, and the chlorophyll. Important organisms. And we said the difference between a plant cell and an animal cell, there's chlorophyll in plant cell. Plant cells have cell wall, they have large food vacuole, they store food as starch, and they have chloroplast. Animal cells don't have chlorophyll, they have cell membrane, not cell wall. They have lysosomes, they have small food vacuoles, they store food as glycogen, and we said both of them are eukaryotic cells. We said the differences between meiosis and mitosis, we just listed 5 of them, and that gives us a wrap about the common cells, the common questions regarding cells in our exam. So watch out. I'm still Dr. Piro. I'm going to be taking you through biology and some important and interesting topics.